welcome back to my channel. I know I've been kind of missing for a while, but I'm here and I am back. I apologize if the lighting is kind of bright. I got a newer ring light for Christmas and for some reason it is not dimming like it should. So it is currently blinding me, but I hope you guys can see me okay and it's not too bright for you. So lately I have been reading the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, and it got me to thinking about some of the most important habits that you can have for success as a reseller. And that's what I wanted to talk about in today's video, is just those habits, good, bad habits that you can just implement in your reselling business to be a little bit more successful. So the first habit I want to talk about is when you list your items. So if you have been in the reselling industry for a while, you probably have had or currently have at some point a death pile. And death piles happen when you source either faster or more than you list. And so I know that death piles are like the number one annoyance for resellers, and the way to cut that back or to make that stop happening is to list your items when you source them. So you want to try to make that a habit. So when you get home from sourcing, don't, put it in a little pile in the corner and wait a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or however long to list them. Make it a priority within maybe 24 hours of you sourcing your items to sit down and process them, list them, photograph them, and get them put away properly so they are out of sight. They are just ready to be sold and you can find them when you sell them. If you don't, then you're just going to end up with a massive death pile that's going to annoy you, that's going to demotivate you, and it's just going to be clutter in your office and in your brain. The second habit that I want to talk about today is just keeping organized, whether it be your inventory or your brain, your schedule, your processes for everything. Being organized just makes your brain feel a little bit clearer. It helps you stay motivated. So you want to keep your inventory organized. You can do that by having a storage system, whatever works for you. I've seen people have totes. I've seen people have bins. I've seen people just keep them on a storage unit, but you want to have a process to it. You don't want to just throw everything in a corner and then have to dig for it when it sells and then you can't find it, or you get frustrated, or you might break something. And if you have an organized inventory system, it's a whole lot easier to find things when you sell it, especially if you use the SKU function on eBay or just in your listings. I know eBay is not the only one that has the SKU system, but if you know exactly what box or what tote or what area of your house or your warehouse that item is in when it sells, you're going to be a much more efficient reseller. And when you're a more efficient reseller, you're going to be a more profitable reseller. The third success habit for reselling I want to talk about is keeping track of everything. So what does that mean? Well, you want to keep track of things like your mileage when you're sourcing. You want to keep track of your expenses, any income, anything that is involving the transfer of money you definitely want to track. But all of that stuff really just helps you at the end of the year come tax time to make sure that you're not overpaying, and maybe you're even getting a bigger refund if that's how your tax situation plays out. The more organized you are throughout the year, the easier and less frustrating tax time will be. And if you didn't know, all of your mileage when you're sourcing or when you're dropping your packages off at the post office, that is all a tax deduction. So if you want to track, I know tracking your mileage can be hard to do it by hand. You have to remember every time that you get in the car, okay, what is my mileage? What is this? How much is it? Blah, 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 blah. So I use a tracking app called Mile IQ. They do have different ones, but this is the one I use. It's very, very easy. So it tracks my mileage whenever I leave the house. It's just always running on my phone. When I have my phone on me, it tracks my mileage. And then I just go into the app and I swipe left or right if it was a business or a personal trip. And at the end of the year, I just send a report to my email and I turn it into my accountant and he does everything else. So it makes it a whole lot easier to track your mileage. And throughout the year, if you have expenses, everybody's got expenses if you have a business. So you want to keep track of those. so that the IRS doesn't come after you. And in the event that you do get audited, you have all of that proof to back up all of your numbers. So again, you want to track your receipts from your any inventory you purchase. If you purchase inventory at yard sales, I know that was always a question for me, is how do you track that? Like, you don't get a receipt at yard sales or flea markets or something like that. And I'll show you what I use. So I just use a sales ticket book like this. You can get anything similar, and I just handwrite out my own receipts. I date them. I'll put, you know, yard sale, or I'll put, like, if I go to a subdivision sale, I'll put, you know, so such and such subdivision sale, and then I'll just like write down everything that I got and the prices, so that I'm not using a separate slip for every single yard sale that I went to if maybe I only got one item at that yard sale. And so I just keep those receipts when I go to things like that I don't get receipts for. If you purchase something online like shipping supplies, you want to try and print out those receipts if you can. I know I buy a lot of supplies from Amazon, and I'll just handwrite my Amazon ones because they don't exactly give you an easy printable receipt for that. But always just keep track of anything. Even if you handwrite it down yourself, it's better than nothing, again, in the event of an audit. And obviously you want to track your income. You won't always get a 1099 at the end of the year. Depending on where your income threshold has hit, the IRS keeps going back and forth with what their guideline is going to be for when you automatically qualify for a 1099. They keep moving it back and forth, saying it's going to be 600. Nope, it's going to be 2,000 or 20,000. They keep changing it. So you want to track it regardless on whether or not you're getting a 1099 or you may hit that threshold, because either way, depending on whether or not you get a 1099, it doesn't matter. You still have to pay taxes on your profits. So you want to track that so that you know that you are, one, doing the right thing and it's not going to come and bite you in the butt later, and that you don't get overcharged as well on your taxes. Now, the reselling platforms, Mercari, eBay, Poshmark, Facebook, they all have reports at the end of the year or at the end of the month or whatever, that they also track your sales and your returns and all of that. But it's always best to keep your own record just in case there's a glitch or something becomes an error somewhere. You can always compare your tracking and your records with that of the platform's records, and you don't always want to rely on that because it could always sometimes be wrong. Another habit that I want to talk about, which you don't have to do this to be successful, but it is a way to kind of streamline the process a little bit, especially if you're a more seasoned reseller. It's kind of harder to do this in the beginning just because you just don't have the experience there to really do this, but that's taking like a percentage in your mind. Say, I only want to source items that fit this profile. For example, say you have a profile for yourself that you make up. Say you want to sell this drill, but you can only sell this drill for $5 and they're asking, you know, $4 for it. Well, that's not enough percentage profit. So make a profile in your mind of how much profit you want to make per item. Do you want to double your money on everything you make at least? If that's the case, then don't pick up anything that you know won't double your money. So does it fit your profile? I know one of my favorite reselling YouTubers, Mel from Back from Burnout, she just made a video all about this and how this has really helped her business, and she doesn't really pick up anything anymore that doesn't fit that profile, because then she ends up, like, if she picks up items that don't fit that profile, and then these items are maybe sitting longer, or they're just not worth the time and effort that you got to put into them. They don't have a fast sell-through rate, and it just doesn't end up being worth your time in the long run. Whereas if you just focus on those items that are going to yield you higher amounts of profit, then you can be a little bit more focused, a little bit more strategic, and a little bit more efficient at your job. This next one is also optional, and I've talked about this before, and that's whether or not you should niche down. Obviously, if you niche down, then a lot of things are going to be streamlined and a little bit quicker for you. If you just focus on just selling books like Mel does, then you don't need to look at anything else. You can, you know, see a yard sale, oh, they have no books. All right, I'm just going to go. I'm not even going to waste my time here. You then begin to know those items inside and out. You know what does good. You know what doesn't do good. You know what to look for. You become an expert in that particular item, that category. And it also makes shipping your items and listing your items easier, because you're not having to, you know, say move items if you got a bigger item, or figure out where to store bigger items. You know, if all of your items are like the same size, then storing them is going to be a whole lot easier. You're not going to need a lot of different things to do that. And obviously shipping them is going to be easier too, because you're not going to need, you know, 30 different box sizes. If all of your items are the same size, you could just get the one that fits that type of item and then just buy a bunch of those. So it's going to be a much more streamlined process if you do niche into a category where like the items are like all similar sizes. Now, if you're just niching into like antiques is a niche. It definitely is. But, you know, you could have antiques that are miniature and you could have antiques that are huge. So, but either way, you still, you know, really become an expert in that field and you know what to look for, which is going to make your sourcing a whole lot easier. And overall, just to kind of wrap things up, you just want to try and make a routine for you in your business that works well. But make a routine in all aspects of your business. Make a routine for sourcing. Make a routine for listing. Make a routine for shipping. Make a routine for your inventory, what you're going to do in these different processes. Because if you have a routine, then it starts to become a little, you have to think about it less. So you don't have to put as much mental effort into it. It's just habit, and you know what to do. Your body's just going to do it because you have made it to be a habit. So, and I am actually running my own book study on the book Atomic Habits that I mentioned at the start of this video. And if you guys would like to be a part of that group study and maybe get your habits in check and get rid of some bad habits, maybe let me know in the comments and I can add you to that book study. And I'm so excited to see you guys, and I'm glad to be back. Thanks.